jump in our video series. We're here in let's kind of jump forward a little bit. We're here in Bodrum, Turkey, in the marina at Bodrum, Turkey, underneath the Castle of St. John. It's a gorgeous setting, and we're very much liking Turkey. The people are wonderful. It's a great place to get work done on the boat. The pricing is extremely reasonable. You're outside the EU, so you don't have the onerous 24% VAT tax on everything. And plus the Turkish lira is not doing that well against the euro, so it's helpful there. But nonetheless, the point of this and the reason that we have to do it is because I needed to do an intro. We got the opportunity while we were in Mykonos, Greece, to tour a Hallberg Rassy 49. A lot of our viewers are quite interested in Bluewater cruising boats. These are boats that are heavier duty, designed for offshore passage making and ocean going use, as opposed to being a lighter weight coastal cruiser type boat. Fast light wind boat, but not necessarily designed for heavy duty use. So we had this opportunity, but there was a problem. The problem really revolved around what they call the meltemi. The meltemi is a wind that blows through the Aegean in the summer months, and it typically is in excess of 30 knots of wind and runs for 6 to 7 days, 24 hours a day. There's no relief from it, and that's what we were seeing. I did the interview with Pierre that you'll see coming up with four different times with 3 different cameras, and this was the best I could get for the topsides audio. I know it's awful, but the noise canceling setting did a great job on canceling the wind noise, but it also took out some of us conversing, and so I tried to increase and decrease the volume as best I could, but there's a limit to how much I can do. So I'm gonna have to go with that, and I hope you guys are okay with it. Once we get below, it gets a lot better. You'll see that the audio is better there, but hope you enjoy. Okay, so this is Pierre, and Pierre is a pro skipper aboard Hallberg Rassy 49 Big Blue. So tell us about Big Blue.
Hello. So Big Blue is Hallberg Rassy 49, as you said. It's from 1989, and it's a nice boat to sail. It's quite rare to have it on charter, so I'm quite lucky to be working on this boat.
Terrific. Well, I mean, in comparison to Oyster 485 Talisman next to us, you know, this boat has a lot more volume to it. I mean, I can just see by looking at it that there's just more room inside for ostensibly just a foot, maybe more of length overall. It's just got a lot more freeboard. It's got a wider stern area, and it's just bigger. Even the rig is a good 5 feet taller than ours. I watched Pierre bring it in. They've got, you know, typical of Hallberg Rassy and Swan and some of the other boats. They've got just really big winches. I don't know what size these are, but I can't tell by looking at them. They're 65s, and ours are 58s. So, you know, it's an era of boat building when they just really did things strong and big. Nowadays, it's just not that way anymore. But let's do a topsides tour. Take us around.
Unfortunately, in the harbor we have the tender on the deck, but when it's off, it's a really nice area, completely flat, so to lie and to enjoy the locations.
You know, teak decks are in great shape.
Yeah, especially for a 29-year-old teak deck. So it was built strongly and really thick. So that is a good point.
You know, a very, very substantial stem fitting and bow roller. Looks like they've got, you know, big Delta style anchor on it. A CQR actually, and you know.
This is a nice locker. There's room for all the fenders, so it's a good place to store them away, not making the other things salty.
Very substantial tow rail that you're not going to, you know, slip your feet on too badly.
Oh, and if something slips out your pocket, it might stay on board.
Exactly, and that's a good thing. But this is a nice way of doing it with the T-capped tow rail. Sorry about the wind noise, I'm sure there's wind noise. Hallberg Rassy is known, identifiable by their hard spray hood Dodger kind of arrangement. And so, I knew when the boat was coming in that it was a Hallberg Rassy just on sight. Looks like a Selden rig, in-mast furling. So it's it's a sloop rig boat, and so very, very nice.
Get inside.
Yep, all new Ray Marine systems.
Yeah, we kept a few of the old ones. Mm-hmm. This is really nice. You're well sheltered, very safe place, especially with the guests. Mm-hmm. If they stay in the cockpit, I know there's no problem. Almost no water comes in here. It's really safe. It's a nice boat.
Typical of center cockpit boats, that you always have the feeling of being pretty safe. That you're not gonna get washed overboard or anything like that. You're pretty high up off the water, and it tends to be that the spray from the bow just goes flying right on by. You don't feel exposed. You don't get water coming in over the coamings. So it's but again, it's a big boat in here. It's big, lots of space. More so than what we have on Talisman. This is a real. They've got the teak gratings on the bottom, and it's just substantial. And the woodwork's in great shape as well.
Yeah, that has been redone recently. Those parts. Mm-hmm. The table also. And there's been quite a lot of work done on the boat. The engine has been completely renewed. So it's not a new one, but it has been taken out and completely refitted. There's a new generator also, and everything works quite well.
What's the company name?
The company name is Big Blue Grease. I'll show you a little flyer inside.
Yeah, so if any of our viewers are looking to charter, they can get in touch and maybe book something. All right, let's take a look.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to walk down forward, which we don't usually do on our boat, but in the interest of video. Wow. Beautiful inside.
I knew you were filming, so we cleaned it up. The guests are coming soon anyway, so had to be done. Oops. So yeah, feel free to check anything.
Okay,
out.
sure. So what we have going on here is we've got a pilot berth similar to the one we have on Talisman, although this one's laid out a little different. It's not forward as much. It's more toward the aft. We have your typical kind of passage-making galley, so that you can brace yourself, while you're using the various, while you're using the cooker, as they say, and making things. It's a hardwood countertop, which is kind of unusual because they're susceptible to damage.
This is not wood. This is plastic. All this material is some synthetic wood.
Excellent.
So it doesn't get damaged by heat or
this is knives or
sponge.
things like that. Yeah.
Those parts are a bit more sensitive, of course. All the real wood.
The fiddles.
But, this is some synthetic.
I'm in the building business myself back in the United States, and the quality of the synthetic materials is so high now, and they look so good to the eye. It's impossible to tell just by looking whether something is synthetic or not. So that's a great thing. It totally fooled me. Here these guys are.
These are for you.
Okay, I'll take them with me again. Nav station that faces forward. I always like that. I don't like the feeling that a nav station has been added on as an afterthought by the designers. It really is the man cave of these boats, and it's the place where the skippers like to sit and look at charts and everything else, and you probably end up doing some actual piloting from down here when it's cold or really rainy and windy outside. They've got the similar type of carpet down that we have. It helps protect the cabin soles. And here in the aft, what would be considered the owner's cabin, you've got a twin bed, a queen bed on the one side, and a real nice area to get dressed and put your clothes on and everything. It
also becomes a third bed.
Yeah, and Pierre's mentioning that this can be made into another bunk, which is always nice, because when you're on passage with lots of people, it's hard to find places. But the woodwork, as is typical for Hallberg Rassy and Oyster as well, is just absolutely top notch, and that's great. It wears well. And look at this, a huge aft head with lots of room inside. A full stand-up, full shower, and it looks like it's got the growy faucets that we're going to have soon on our boat, and that just looks great. That's just every piece of space you use on a boat comes from somewhere else, so it's all a matter of how it gets allocated.
So this is the crew cabin.
Yep.
It's a bit more messy than the other ones.
No, but that's fine. That's the way it works when you're the skipper. You don't take the prime spots. You give those to the guests.
Yeah, and you can keep the door open and keep an eye on everything what happens.
Sure. Yeah, you're not disturbing anyone.
That is nice.
As you come and go. V-berth up front. Wow, another pilot berth here. Couple of twin beds. This is going to be the chain plate assembly behind here. So that's what's going on there. Probably takes away a little bit from the desirability of this upper bunk, but being in the lower bunk, especially if you had some lee cloths, you'd be just fine. And then up front here, very, very similar design to Talisman. Up in front of there is going to be your chain locker, and just wonderful woodwork all the way through. In all honesty, in much better shape than than Talisman. They've done a great job with this, and I wish our boat looked this way. And this would be a forward head.
Yeah.
Here.
So the head is behind the door.
Mm-hmm. So again,
yeah. Trash bin is on the wrong spot.
Yeah, that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's perfectly fine. So it's electric heads?
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very nicely done. Mirrors are in good shape. The showers are usable. They're not gonna, your guests aren't gonna just spray water everywhere. They're easy to use. Very, very cool. So Pierre, what would you say your favorite part of the boat is? I mean, what do you really like about this boat?
I like it sails really nicely, even in strong winds. The fact that you can comfortably sleep outside, the cockpit is big enough. When it's a bit windy at anchor, I like to sleep there. So I get awake if there is a strong gust, and if I want to check something, I just put my head up, I don't have to climb up. And yeah, it's nice. It's big. You can we often have six people on board plus us two. So and then there is enough room for everyone. And sometimes we're just two, and that's also perfectly fine. So yeah, it's
What type of speeds do you get out of the boat under sail?
We easily get a good 7, and when we're lucky, we manage to get a 11. But with the waves. Okay. So I think the maximum speed should be about 8-9 if we do the calculations on the water length. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it goes nicely upwind because it's a mid-long keel, so not too much drift. And yeah, it's a really nice boat to be chartering.
Terrific. What type of engine do you guys have?
What?
What's your engine?
Let me show you that.
Oh, we'll get a view of it.
And this is also a good part about this boat. The engine is accessible.
Oh, absolutely.
So we can do maintenance and repairs.
Wow, that's a big engine. What is it?
143.
143. And it's
redone in 2017.
what is it? Volvo Penta? Is it?
Yeah, Volvo Penta.
Yeah, it's got the color. I just didn't see it anywhere listed on the valve covers. And a big Kohler generator back there.
Yeah.
Water filter. It looks like it's probably accessible from above. Very, very clean in the bilges. I wish I could say that that's how Talisman was. They say Pierre says they pulled the engine and rebuilt it recently, and that's always the great opportunity to clean everything up really nicely. But this is a great engine bay, much bigger than what we see on Talisman. And Talisman's just a smaller boat, and every time you go smaller, it gets harder to fit everything in that you want. But this is just really nicely done. You got your Raycor filters, you can see through them, so that you can, whereas ours are kind of down underneath in an area where it's very hard to see if you don't put a flashlight behind. Here we got raw water strainers. It's very, very nicely put together. What's with the cabling system over there?
That's the steering wheel.
Okay, so that's your binnacle control for the rudder.
Yeah, and the autopilot is nicely inside in the back cabin under the seats.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also well protected.
Right. Beautiful. I love the lighting. I love the fact that you can do this. Being able to see what you're doing.
Like a real big engine room.
Exactly.
Like hospital lights inside.
Yeah, exactly.
I call it the surgery, not surgery room, but it kind of gives the feeling of a hospital.
Yeah.
With all the white.
What this goes to show is you don't necessarily have to buy a new boat. You can go with an older boat and know that you're going to have to do work on it. That's the thing. It's going to, if you buy a new boat, you probably go for 5 years or so without any kind of major, replacements or failures, or you'll do your maintenance and everything, but you're not going to have to replace an entire genset right away. But these boats are really worth the investment because they hold their value. They don't usually cost a ton of money to buy. The entry price is medium, I would call it. Great boat. I mean, just really, really sparkles. And I'm sure Pierre spent a lot of time getting it all cleaned up for us. If you were chartering, this would be a fun place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't see many Hallberg Rassys on charter.
Right.
And Hallberg Rassy is 49 with 4 cabins. I think there are only 4. So the other ones have different layouts because it's been produced it's quite a big series, but not in this layout. And this is good. You can get more people comfortably inside.
Perfect.
So perfect for charter.
Well, thanks for giving us the tour.
Thank you for coming.
No worries at all. All right. Pierre and I were talking that, nowadays you probably allocate a little bit more room to a boat like this for a sugar scoop transom instead of a plumb transom, and that would help people feel a little bit better about getting on and off the boat. But still a very impressive boat and a very, very neat thing. It looks to me like they even have a windlass on the stern for some sort of a kedge anchor system. I can't tell for sure. It sure looks that way. Anyway, very, very neat. Good stuff.
50 in the harbor?
We saw 50 knots in the harbor earlier today. We saw 48.9 knots on our, just as a gust. But boy, it's been blowing like crazy. So we came back into the cockpit here to talk a little bit. It's very protected here, as is typical for Hallberg Rassy. They've got a fully glassed, windscreen that the bimini and spray hood kind of tie into, and it's a real signature feature. It's probably one of the ways you can identify a Hallberg Rassy. So we were talking a little bit about boat design and the fact that this boat was available as a catch rig, and a lot of the early ones were catch. This one's rigged as a sloop rig boat, but he tells me there's a compression post in the back that would have been used for the second mast. We were just kind of talking that the new boats, a lot of our viewers ask us why why there's not more catch rig boats around, and especially with the new production boats. And I think the big reason is cost.
Cost and performance. I'd say both.
Right.
People going in rough weather still like, some of them still prefer catch rig because you have more options. But yeah, I think you go a bit faster and it's also a bit cheaper. So
Yeah.
that would help to make a decision for a lot of people.
I think it's also a kind of a hard sell for the boat salespeople. A lot of people who have chartered boats, their experience on boats has been with the charter operations in the Caribbean or perhaps here in Greece, and that's all they've ever sailed is a sloop rigged boat. And they look at a catch and they really don't know, what they would do with it. They don't know how you would sail. Of course, if you bought one, you'd find out in about a week. You'd probably have it figured out. But in the meantime, they're kind of sitting there thinking, like, what sail do I put up first, and what do I do? So it's a little bit more complicated of a boat, more options, and that those choices are actually a good thing. You have a lot more options for when you're out at sea, like for how you're gonna protect the boat. But either way, less catch rig boats out there these days.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. Well, we'll leave it at that, and we'll see how things look. Just a much bigger boat.